Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and yes, you read the title, you know exactly what it is that I'm reviewing, and as I teased/mentioned in the last review video. 2010 was a big year for movies, and in this case, animated movies, and definitely for DreamWorks. Yeah, 2010 was a big year for DreamWorks. They had 3 movies coming out that year. One that was all about a supervillain who would go to becoming a superhero, and they would close, and one that where they would close the final chapter of everyone's favorite green Scottish ogre, and the third one that came out that year. Well, DreamWorks would start a new franchise. And boy, did the first one in this new franchise of DreamWorks, did it make animation history, for sure. That's right. I'm reviewing How to Train Your Dragon. Yes, the first How to Train Your Dragon film. What a fantastic, memorable, and masterpiece/gem of a DreamWorks animated movie. Don't you think? I mean, it pretty much is. Just the storytelling and, you know, everything that was going on in this movie. From the characters, the funny moments, the emotional moments, the music and the animation and all the sets, and, you know, the flying sequences, just everything to this. Fantastic. So, as always, read the description/the story. Hiccup is a Norse teenager from the island of Berk, where fighting dragons is a way of life. His progressive views and weird sense of humor make him a misfit, despite the fact that his father is chief of the clan. Tossed into dragon fighting school, he endeavors to prove himself as a true Viking. But when he befriends a injured dragon he names Toothless, he has the chance to plot a new course for his people's future. So if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure I am, the directors of How to Train Your Dragon, Chris Sanders and Dean, I'm not gonna bother, trying to pronounce his last name. Again, you know me sometimes, okay? So both of them, being the directors of How to Train Your Dragon, I'm pretty sure this was their first DreamWorks animated film that they worked on/directed on, and especially after the two of them, who previously worked at Disney and directing the one and only and beloved Lilo and Stitch, they would leave Disney at a certain point in the later mid-2000s and would move to DreamWorks and thus work and direct on How to Train Your Dragon. I think I'm right on that, I'm pretty sure. And this being their first DreamWorks animated film. And then, of course, they would go on to direct The Croods. Yeah, and work at DreamWorks some more. So, yeah, I gotta say, because it was nice to see that this movie had the directors from Lilo and Stitch. You know, especially since, I guess technically, both How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch, they share some things in common. I mean, you know, let's face it, you have the main human character and the creature that this human interacts with and befriends, you know, Lilo, Stitch, and in How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup and Toothless. Yeah, and not to mention, and this is true, Toothless was modeled after Stitch. And I think you can tell, because of the facial expressions, I think, the shape of the mouth and head, just all of that, you know, Toothless's face, just, you know, resembling Stitch. That's fantastic. Yeah, okay, and with the film itself, the story, taking place on an island called Berk, and this village that has been on this island called Berk, and we get a bit of narration from Hiccup. He explains that the village has been there for 7 generations, and there would always be new buildings on the island of Berk, and the way Hiccup describes the island of Berk is pretty funny. and, you know, some nice positive things about it. But most of all, they have to deal with dragons, because dragons would show up and they would steal, basically, their animals, like, say, the sheep. And, of course, we see that happening, and, of course, we get the introduction of our main character, Hiccup, voiced by Jay Burchell, Barshell, if I'm pronouncing his last name right or wrong. Again, you know me. Yeah, because he was fantastic voicing Hiccup. And, you know, something about Hiccup I just feel like to mention. That same year, when How to Train Your Dragon came out, Jay was in that live-action Disney film called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And I don't know, because I feel like the two characters he played in The Sorcerer's Apprentice and How to Train Your Dragon, I think they do share a few things in common, don't you think? And I also think that Hiccup shares a few things in common with Flick from A Bug's Life. Don't you think? Because, you know, Flick and Hiccup, they don't fit in with, you know, being in the ant colony and on the island of Berk with the Vikings, and, you know, they mess up a lot of things. And what happens next is they start to get appreciated and get, you know, a very good respect, you know, later on in the film. But then something, you know, terrible happens to both of them. But then, sure enough, you know, in the climax, you know, things turn out much better for them. And I think you get what I'm saying. So, I don't know, because I don't know why I didn't think of that until, say, now, you know, that Hiccup and Flick share a few things in common, and the same goes for Jay's character in The Sorcerer's Apprentice and Hiccup, if you get what I'm saying. So in the opening of the film, and on the island of Berk, because the dragon's coming in, stealing the sheep, and the Vikings defending themselves, taking on the dragons, and again, we get the introduction of Hiccup. We also get Gobber, being voiced by Craig Ferguson, and Stoic, who is the chief of, you know, the island, being voiced by Jared Butler. Yeah, Jared Butler. This is Sparta! I just had to say it, because it's true, you know, the same dude from 300, Leonardus? Yeah, Leonardus. That's his character's name in 300. And then we get other Norse teenagers. We have Astrid, voiced by America Ferrera, I think I'm saying her last name right, whom Hiccup has a crush on. And we also have Snotlout, being voiced by Joanna Hill, Fishlegs, being voiced by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, if I'm saying that right, I think. And we have Toughnut, being voiced by T.J. Miller, and Toughnut's twin sister, Roughnut, being voiced by Kristen Wiig. Yeah, these group of Norse teenagers, they were pretty funny in their personalities, and how, you know, all of them, including Astrid, like, they don't, you know, treat Hiccup very well, you know, kind of taunting him at times. But of course, sure enough, and what would happen later on in the film, and until I get to that. And Hiccup, for a long time, he had always dreamed of killing and taking on a dragon. And again, because Hiccup just kind of getting in the way and just making things worse. But at one point, he sees a Night Fury, and it's this one dragon that nobody really sees. It just flies by really fast, and it has this special, like, fire power, you know, because, you know, dragons shooting fire out of their mouths, and the kind of firepower that the Night Fury has. So yeah, a Night Fury is present, and all the other dragons that are in this film, like, there's one that's called a Monstrous Nightmare, there's one called a Gronkill, I think I'm saying that right, and one called Hideous Zippleback, I think that sounds about right, and Deadly Natter, and there's also a Hot Burple, I think I got that right. And these, like, tiny little, like, midget dragons. I'm not sure if I see their names. Is it Armorwing? No, that's not it. But, those tiny little midget dragons, yeah. Which are, they're funny and cute. So as if all the dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, especially Toothless, they're adorable and cute. So yeah. So again, to Hiccup, he spots a Night Fury, and he successfully launches a weapon at it and takes out this Night Fury. But sure enough, one dragon, which being the monstrous Nightmare, chases after Hiccup, and sure enough, what happens next? Hiccup accidentally causes the dragons to escape and still capture the island of Berk's animals, which of course being the sheep. They get away with their food, and, Stoic is disappointed in Hiccup. And the thing is, Stoic, being the chief of the island, he's Hiccup's father, and Stoic just being disappointed in Hiccup. And throughout most of this movie, just, Stoic, and Gobber telling Hiccup not to be him, all him, and, what's on the inside of him, and so on. Golly, that's really harsh on Hiccup. Like, he really hasn't done anything to them. I mean, sure, he's clumsy, but, he's innocent. And he's clumsy at first, but later on, and as this character develops, let me tell you, And so, at one point, Hiccup sneaks away to find the dragon that he took down, which being the Night Fury. He finds it, and, he's excited and happy to see that he finally took down a dragon, and this being a Night Fury. And he was this close to killing the Night Fury, but the look on the Night Fury's face, something, made Hiccup not want to kill this dragon, and he then frees the Night Fury. And you think that the Night Fury is going to eat and kill Hiccup, but I mean, the Night Fury can see the look in Hiccup's face, and he lets Hiccup live, and all that the Night Fury does is just roar right in his face, like, he's gonna make him go deaf, like, right in his ear. Jeez Louise. But thankfully he didn't go deaf. That was pretty funny. And at one point, Hiccup's father, Stoic, plans to go out to the seas to find the location where all these dragons are hiding, because the Vikings know that there is a nest of dragons that's somewhere out in the seas, but they have never been able to find it for many years, decades, and centuries, up until what happens later on in the movie. It was pretty funny, because Stoic, having a meeting with these Vikings on heading out to the seas to try and find the nest, and he asks the Vikings, who will join me? And nobody, chimes in or raises their hands, and Stoic telling them that that they could stay here and babysit Hiccup, but they jump into the chance, okay, because they just want to get away from Hiccup. Again, just them being so harsh on Hiccup, I tell ya. And the interactions and chemistries between Stoic and Gobber are pretty good. It's it's like Stoic and Gobber they're like brothers, don't you think? And especially, there were a few times where Stoic was talking about his days when he was his son's age, and mentioning his father, Stoic's father, that is. Stoic explaining at one point that his father had him, hit on a rock, and what happened next was, the rock split in half, and Gobber telling him, you had the headache, and it was pretty funny. And then, at one point, Stoic decides to have Hiccup train fighting against dragons, because at the beginning of the film, Stoic doesn't think that Hiccup has it in him to become a dragon killer and to take on dragons. That's what that's what he feels, that, his son can't do this, and he doesn't have it in him. But again, later on, he decides that he'll let his son do dragon training. And with that, well, because, with Hiccup still interacting and slowly but surely bonding with Toothless, and Toothless, same goes for Toothless, slowly but surely trusting, loving, and bonding with Hiccup. And yeah, because at one point, Hiccup discovers and finds that Toothless is in this, like, this one location where there's, like, a very nice pond, I want to say, and because what Hiccup did to Toothless, Hiccup accidentally damaged part of his tail. A part of his tail was missing, and Hiccup offered Toothless a fish, and just being very careful and gently giving Toothless the fish. And how Toothless got the name Toothless, well, when he opened his mouth, there were no teeth, just his gums. And Hiccup, said, "Oh, you're Toothless," and that's where the Night Fury gets his name, Toothless. And yeah, Toothless does show his teeth and munching on the fish, and Toothless hacking up half of the fish and offering it to Hiccup, and Toothless telling Hiccup, just giving him instructions on what to do with the fish. That was pretty funny and adorable as well. So with Hiccup starting dragon training along with the other Norse teenagers, Astrid, Snotlout, Fishlegs, Toughnut, and Roughnut, at first it doesn't really go well the first few times taking on the dragons, and Hiccup a few times getting Astrid on her nerves and such. But sure enough, things start to look pretty good for Hiccup when things get much better for him, when, he continues with dragon training. And with this going on, he's also, hanging out with Toothless more, still bonding, interacting with him. And again, slowly but surely, they would, connect very well. With those two things going on, Hiccup's father, Stoic, still out in the seas with all the other Vikings, trying to locate the dragon's nest, and yeah, they're having no luck so far. But back at Berk, again, things are looking pretty good for Hiccup as the dragon training proceeds, and what he learns from Toothless and what he would do during dragon training. He would connect, and things would go pretty well with him and the dragons that he and the other Norse teenagers would come face to face with, starting with the small ones, then the big ones, yeah. And even Hiccup at one point, like, he was looking up, I think it was like a guidebook of all breed of dragons, but Night Fury is not on the guidebook of dragons. The encyclopedia, the history, and knowing everything about these breed of dragons, Night Fury is not listed. At least not yet. Even, like, say, when Hiccup is drawing a picture of Toothless, drawing an image of a Night Fury, and figuring out, giving Toothless a mechanical piece to fix his tail, to become a new, piece, and for it to be a part of his broken/damaged tail. Yeah, because at one point he hooks it up on Toothless's tail, and we get a moment where, Toothless is trying to fly with this mechanism, and a couple of times it doesn't go well. I mean, he's this close to really flying, but yeah, just no luck. And Astrid is getting very suspicious about what Hiccup's doing, and, Hiccup always, disappearing, and he's not telling them what he's doing and what he's up to. Yeah. And Astrid just still getting, aggravated with Hiccup, and how easily Hiccup is, how he's coming face to face with these dragons during dragon training. And at that point, everybody on the island of Berg, the villagers, even the Norse teenagers, they start to love and respect Hiccup more. But Astrid, not so much, because, they're turning away from Astrid, that being the Norse teenagers, and they want to hang out with Hiccup. Like, he's the new cool, Norse teenager and soon-to-be Viking. And that's another thing, because, Hiccup, he wants to be a Viking as well. Be a Viking and to take on dragons. But, as the film proceeds and how connected Hiccup becomes with Toothless, well, something, of course, changes. Like, he no longer wants to kill and attack dragons. So, yeah. And funny moments that happen during dragon training, like, apparently because Snotlout is really good at knowing everything about dragons, just very detailedly, like, one dragon that they face off against, like, it spits out, produces, smoke, and, in fact, the two-headed dragon, I think, smoke and also, electric in one of their mouths, yeah. But again, Hiccup taking on these dragons easily, not using any weapons, anything like that, just, calmly interacting with them, back, and even terrifying one of them with, this, eel. In fact, when at one point Hiccup brought Toothless a whole sack of fish, there was an eel, and Toothless didn't like the sight of this eel. So yeah, that was a good weapon to use to set the dragon straight, And at one point, because a female elderly Viking is observing, and at that point, Stoic and all the other Vikings that joined him to try to find the dragon's nest, they came back, and Stoic is surprised to hear what's been going on the island of Berk, and an awkward, and it doesn't go so well between Stoic and Hiccup, like them trying to have a conversation, and Stoic is impressed with how Hiccup's been turning out, on the island of Berk while he was away. Yeah, again, pretty awkward, and it doesn't go well with them trying to have a conversation. And again, an elderly female Viking observing, what both Astrid and Hiccup can do with a dragon, and, Hiccup wins, and, because again, everybody is looking up to Hiccup, because he's doing so well, and Astrid really is aggravated with Hiccup, and Hiccup's final testimony, I want to say, yeah, his final challenge and such, for dragon training is coming up, and Hiccup does not like the sound of this, and he plans on both him and Toothless to take a vacation forever, as he says. And sure enough, Astrid shows up, and she's getting to Hiccup. She wants to know what's going on and what he's doing, what he's hiding, and sure enough, she meets Toothless, and it doesn't go well at first, even when Astrid... Well, it was pretty funny, because Hiccup introducing each of them, to each other, Astrid, Toothless, Toothless, Astrid, and Toothless so is greeting to Astrid, and she runs away, and, Hiccup going, da-da-da, we're dead. Hey, where are you going? Because Toothless walked off. But, sure enough, Toothless grabs a hold of Astrid when she's still running, and basically Hiccup is trying to get Astrid to like him some more and to like Toothless, and them flying around was hilarious, and Toothless just getting to Astrid, and at one point Astrid apologizes, and it doesn't take too long for Astrid to think Hiccup and Toothless are cool, and she starts to like both of them, and she likes Hiccup a lot more this time. And speaking of them flying, I gotta say, the flying sequences in How to Train Your Dragon were fantastic, and I can't forget to mention this, that one flying sequence where this time Hiccup and Toothless, test out part of Toothless's new wing, and yeah, just them flying around the sea and the rocks, just fantastic. And for this movie coming out on IMAX, and for those that experienced How to Train Your Dragon on an IMAX screen and also in 3D, 3D glasses. Oh, I can imagine just how fantastic that was, experiencing How to Train Your Dragon in 3D and in IMAX. Yeah, and I do recall hearing that it was definitely one of the highlights for 3D and IMAX, no doubt about it. So jumping back to Hiccup, Astrid, and Toothless, because of them flying around throughout most of the day, and when it's evening time, Astrid and Hiccup have a little talk, and on that day, tomorrow, is Hiccup's final results of, dragon training, and everybody's going to be there to, see him take on a dragon, and what is he going to do, and, if anything's going to happen, and if Toothless is discovered. Yeah. But when that happens the next day, Hiccup asks Astrid to make sure nothing happens to Toothless and so on. And so Hiccup in the dragon training ring, and taking on a dragon, and of course his father Stoic being there to watch this, and the weapons that Hiccup goes for, well, he has the helmet, the shield, but he goes for a different weapon, and, Stoic says to Gobber, commenting, if I were him, I would have gone with the hammer, whatever he says. And what Hiccup does is when he comes face-to-face with the dragon, he's supposed to fight with, and that being... it was, which dragon was it again? Yeah, the Monstrous Nightmare. That's the one where it can be, the dragon can be set on fire, no harm done. Besides, the dragons, they have fire to them, and, they're fireproof, if you get what I'm saying. And so, Hiccup, he puts his weapons down. All the Vikings and Stoic, they're just stunned. What is he doing? And he's showing the Vikings that, he's telling them, you have to see this. And Stoic just, growing concerned and is worried, something's gonna happen to Hiccup, and, and shouting, stop the fight! And he hit something, and it was very loud, and it just made the Monstrous Nightmare just, go berserk and try to attack and kill Hiccup. And that's another thing, because Hiccup realizes, another thing that he realizes about the dragons is that they are friendly and kind, good creatures. It's just the Vikings are scaring them. The dragons are defending themselves. And not to mention, I can't forget to mention this, when they were flying, Astrid, Hiccup, and Toothless, Toothless sensed something and was flew somewhere else and met with all these other dragons. They were making their way to the dragon's nest. The dragon's nest we finally see, and Hiccup and Astrid see it for the first time. Basically, all the dragons, with them stealing live animals on the island, like the sheeps, bringing food, not for them to eat themselves, but for, their master, technically. As Astrid described, they're feeding, the Dragon Queen, basically, the big, ferocious giant, dragon who is the dragon's leader. You know what I'm saying? This giant ferocious dragon is the leader to all these dragons, and the dragons are feeding their master, their ruler, in the dragon's nest. And yeah, and with Hiccup, almost getting eaten and attacked by the Monstrous Nightmare, Toothless heard Hiccup's scream, and thus he races to protect and save Hiccup, and all of the Vikings are seeing a Night Fury for the first time, and, yeah, all the Vikings step in and, attack and hold Toothless down. Even at one point, Toothless was almost going to eat and kill Hiccup's father, Stoic, and Hiccup shouting to Toothless, "No!" And Toothless turning to Hiccup, and, he feels bad because he was disobeying Hiccup, and yeah, Toothless is captured and held by the Vikings. Stoic is very disappointed with his son and confronting Hiccup, like, all of that were lies and so on, and Hiccup, trying to convince and tell his father that it's not what he thinks, and telling him that, we scare the dragons and they're defending themselves, that's all. And Hiccup accidentally slipped mentioning the dragon's nest and him seeing it, and, only a dragon knows the direction of the dragon's nest. He accidentally gave that away to his father, and even Hiccup just trying to, convince his father that, he's making a mistake, and, Stoic then saying to his own son, "You're no Viking, and you're not my son." Oh, that just hits you hard right there. And we do see, because when Stoic left the room, he does have a look in his face like, yeah, he couldn't believe what he just said to his own flesh and blood. Yeah, so it does kind of remind me of, in The Little Mermaid, after what King Triton did in Ariel's, secret grotto, of all these human items. After destroying all of that, he did have a look in his face like, he felt bad, doing it and hurting his daughter. It's so there's I just thought I'd mention that because I think that's a good example, don't you think? And so Stoic and all the Vikings sail out to find the dragon's nest, and they take Toothless along with them because, again, only a dragon can know the location and sense the presence and hear the dragon's nest. And then what happens next is that, Hiccup just feeling really bad over himself and what he's done, and Astrid getting to Hiccup, and she's trying to get Hiccup to speak up and so on, and she's asking him why he didn't kill Toothless, and Hiccup saying that he was a coward, and because something changed into Hiccup, and when he saw the look on Toothless's face. Yeah, very emotional. And again, just Astrid getting to him and just encouraging him and so on. And sure enough, Hiccup, Astrid, along with Snotlout, Fishlegs, Toughnut, and Roughnut, they all come together and they ride on their now very own dragons. And that's nice because each of the Norse teenagers getting their own pet dragons, I guess you could say. And they match pretty well with them, don't you think? Because the dragon that Astrid gets, and Snotlout, Fishlegs, and, the twin brother and sister. And, of course, with Hiccup, he has Toothless, if you get what I'm saying. So to speed things up a little, Stoic, Gobber, and all the other Vikings, they finally discover and find the location of the dragon's nest. They launch a fiery ball cannon to get the dragon's attention, to just get them to fly, but also it summons and pisses off the big ferocious dragon that leads these dragons. These dragons, they're under his command because, again, they're feeding him, as I explained. And yeah, chaos erupts. And sure enough, Hiccup and all the other Norse teenagers arrive on the dragons they're riding on and taking on the big ferocious dragon. And Stoic is speechless because he doesn't speak, he just says it with his lips, and Gobber mentions something to Stoic of, this is what you were like when you were a kid, because he said something about, what Stoic was like when he was Hiccup's age, and he agreed, he nodded. That was pretty funny. He couldn't deny that. So again, they take on and distract the big ferocious beast of a dragon, And while at one point, Hiccup tries to unlock/free Toothless, but even when, say, because of the big dragon causing the Viking ship that had Toothless to, be damaged and to sink, like Toothless and Hiccup, they're sinking, and, at one point, because Hiccup, he almost drowns, and because he was desperate to try to free Toothless, and sure enough, Stoic steps in, bringing Hiccup to the surface and going back down to free Toothless. That was right there, like, Stoic realized and, he regretted all the things that he did. And even before Hiccup and Toothless went to take on the big dragon, Stoic apologized to his son for everything, and same goes for Hiccup. And Stoic even said to Hiccup, "I'm proud to call you my son." So yeah. And because, again, he regretted what he said to Hiccup, "You're not my son," because, as I said, yeah. And so Hiccup and Toothless reunited and taking on the big dragon along, with the help of the other Norse teenagers. And it all comes down to Hiccup and Toothless. And with the fire power that Toothless has, their goal is to fire in the big dragon's mouth and to also damage the big dragon's wings to get him to fly up that high and to take him out. And they successfully do so, even when, like, say, the big ferocious dragon at times, like, had the capability to like suck anything that gets in his mouth, like a vacuum, I want to say. And he was this close to sucking Toothless and Hiccup in his mouth, but that was the moment right there where Toothless fired directly in his mouth, and that caused his wings to, burn and to fall down and be destroyed. But then, at one point, the big dragon's tail hit Toothless and Hiccup, and Hiccup almost fell to his death, and he was unconscious, and Toothless quick enough to save Hiccup. And we get this huge explosion, and yeah, the big, mighty beast of a dragon is defeated once and for all, and all of the dragons that were under that big dragon's command are all free. And it seems like, well, there's no sign of Toothless and Hiccup, but we do see Toothless and, you think at first, and especially Stoic and all the other Vikings and Astrid, they think that Hiccup was killed in the explosion, but nope. Toothless did save Hiccup, and everybody's happy and they're cheering. And there was one shot where a couple of Vikings, they were just startled by one of the dragons, and it was very emotional and sweet when Stoic looked at Toothless and thanked Toothless for saving his son. And the aftermath/epilogue. Hiccup wakes up, and he's back in his home and his room, and Toothless being there, and it turns out we see that Hiccup now has a, mechanical, leg, that kind of stuff that Vikings had, even Gobber, because he lost one of his arms to a dragon, and he has, a hook-like hand. He can, have any different, pieces on, his hook-like hand. You know what I'm talking about. And the fact that we never see how Hiccup lost his leg, well, obviously, it's when he fell in that huge explosion, but really, how did he lose his leg? Or, they never establish it, and if it was established, I don't know. And if you guys know, leave comments about that. But yeah, all now goes really well on the island of Berk. The Vikings now accept the dragons, and especially, the Norse teenagers now have their own dragons, and Astrid and Hiccup, well, they now officially become a happy romantic couple. And I can't forget to mention this. There were a couple of times where Astrid was kind of, hitting and, kind of beating Hiccup at times, that's for this, blah, blah, blah. And there was one moment where she kissed Hiccup on the cheek, and at the end of the movie, she kissed him on the lips. Yeah. And so, yeah, and for Toothless, he now has his own, mechanical piece of of his tail, and thanks to Gobber, because obviously, it's Gobber helped design it, and we see Hiccup and all the other Norse teenagers and Astrid ride on their dragons, and we get one more bit of narration from Hiccup, what he now says and describes of the island of Berk. And yeah, what a great way to end the film, and showing the title/logo of the film. Yeah, again, great way to end the film right there. How to Train Your Dragon. Again, what a fantastic, memorable masterpiece/gem of a DreamWorks animated feature film. It's true. The storytelling is fantastic, the characters, the funny moments, the emotional moments, the animation, the music, just everything about the first How to Train Your Dragon movie, fantastic. And of course, this being based off of the book by the same name by Cressida Cowell, if I'm saying the full name right. Yeah. And I actually do remember reading a little bit of those books, and I remember my mom reading some of those books to me. So of course I was well aware of, the books and reading some of them. Yeah. And yeah, what a fantastic movie adaptation of a book, and, this being an animated film, just fantastic. And I'm giving the first How to Train Your Dragon film 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, of course, 10 out of 10 stars for the first How to Train Your Dragon film. And what about you guys? What did you think of the first How to Train Your Dragon film itself? Like, did you get to experience this when it came out, in theaters, seen it in 3D, IMAX, and, some of your favorite characters, loving the dragons, and of course, most notably Toothless, just everything about this film. And what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the first How to Train Your Dragon film. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video/review. And the next film I'm going to be reviewing later tonight, well, to best describe it, this film comes straight from Universal Pictures, and it's about a group of girls trying to be pitch perfect. I'm sure you might know what it is that I'm talking about. Stay tuned for that. Take care, and until I review How to Train Your Dragon 2, peace out.